out loud. And now I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get started. We have a really fun topic today. I know some of you are already considering similar programs even, or doing something somewhat similar. So this is a peer presentation today, and there we go. And it's we're going to be talking with Shannon Ratliff from Suncoast Market about their produce box program. We're going to get real quick through the housekeeping video if you can. We love to see your faces so we can interact with you. Mute if you're not talking right now. This call is being recorded, so just keep that in mind with anything you say or share, as the video recording will be available to the general public. And for check-ins, I'm just going down the list of what co-ops are with us today. So if you having a chance to put your co-op in the chat yet, please do. I've got that we've got Village of Williamsville, Chicago Market, Sola Food Co-op, Clipper City Co-op, Purple Carrot Food Co-op, Cultivate Community Co-op, Delridge Grocery Co-op, Suncoast Market, of course, South Philly Food Co-op, Prairie Food Co-op, and Silverton Food Co-op. Did I miss anybody? Awesome, great crowd today. Welcome, Delridge. I don't know if we've seen you on the calls before this one. Great to see you guys. All right, so we're going to dive right in today. Oh, and Park Slope Food Co-op formerly. Park Slope's definitely still in existence. Do you mean you're representing a different co-op today? Okay, I'm not sure. Oh, you used to work there, but no longer do. Okay, yeah. Well, if we're going to do that, then I could list a couple as well. All right, well, we're going to get started. Do keep in mind the way we use the chat. We are expecting around 20-25 people today. It's way too many for just to kind of everyone talk at once. Although when we get to some question periods, if we don't get above 20 or so people in the room, we're going to do it a little different. We are going to let people unmute and ask their own questions when we get to the question period. If you have questions you want to ask as Shannon and I are talking, and if things come up that you want to make sure we address, go ahead and throw them in the chat. But if we continue to have about 20 people in the room, it's a perfect size actually for a more open conversation, and we'll have a question period where we kind of open the floor or ask people to kind of say they have a question, just say that in the chat, and then I can say, hey, I'm calling on you right now, just to kind of keep things in order. But we are going to let people unmute and talk, which will be fun. Okay, so our topic today, stay on topic, of course. This one's going to be a little, I know everyone's going to be very excited. There's going to be a lot of questions. I don't think we have any problem staying on topic. Actually, I think we're having a problem getting to all of the logistical questions everyone's going to have before the end of the hour, but please do keep it on the topic of this type of program. All right, today's speaker is Shannon Ratliff, as I said, the outreach manager at Suncoast Market. And our 2020 best of the best up and coming food co-op. And their topic today is their project to create a fresh produce box service that is evolved since COVID-19 as a response to that. All right, so Shannon, you're here with us, correct?
Yes, hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Hello there, thanks for joining us today. So
yeah, thanks for having me. This is great.
I know that you're extremely busy between your job with Suncoast and this project right now, everything, so we appreciate the time. I guess I'd like to start with just asking you, tell us, I mean, was this what you had in mind when you guys got started? How did the idea for this program evolve?
Well, I think along the way, since we started the co-op, a lot of people have asked if we could do CSA boxes or distribute produce boxes. And we've taken a pretty hard line of saying no, because we didn't want anything that would distract from our goal of opening a store. And so we haven't done that, and we haven't really had any serious interest in doing that until COVID-19 decided to take everything out. And we started getting a lot of messages from people asking, where can I buy fresh produce? Which farms are still open? How do I support local farms? Can somebody deliver me food? You know, we're getting a lot of this interest. And so one of our our steering committee members, he used to work for a local farm here, and he said, you know, this specialty produce, which is a local food distributor that really is just distributing food to restaurants. And he's like, they do this farmers market program. Let's look into it. And it turns out that they were putting together 40 little curated farmers market boxes every week. So they're just doing 40 boxes. People would pay $20 and they could go into their distribution center and pick them up. And so we thought, well, I could just do that here, right? That seems simple enough. They're already doing it. We would just get some orders and drive up there and pick them up.
Okay, so they're actually located in a different city then.
Yeah. It's not far, but it's, you know, it's within a half an hour, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's a jog, like bringing it to your community. It's probably not something people already in your exact community were accessing.
No, it's not a place that anyone in our community would shop or would go up and buy that box from them. So this was definitely taking a program that they had and really creating sort of an expansion on it for our community. We thought we'd get maybe 10 to 20 people that were interested initially in that first week. And so what we thought were the logistics was driving up there with finding a Sprinter van and driving up there to get produce boxes and bringing them back.
Okay, so let's take that from there.
Yeah.
So we reached out to them and said, hey, we'd like to piggyback on this. They were interested, and then you started thinking through. Now, this is the question list Shannon gave me that they just thought through as they were trying to develop it. These didn't even come from me, and I had a million, but she outdid me. So what were all the questions you were asking yourself? Because as you said, you guys had shied away from doing a program like this because you knew it would take a lot, and now you've decided to take it on, at least through COVID-19. So walk us through these questions and
right.
Work through them.
Well, we thought that, you know, we were getting enough requests that this was a perfect time to pilot a program like this because we have an out, right? COVID's done, we're done. If this isn't working, we can just say, you know, it was just a temporary service. If it works well, then we could continue doing it. So the biggest question is whether or not we have enough people that make it worthwhile while we're on stay-at-home orders, because California went into stay-at-home orders really quickly and pretty rigidly. And so we weren't really sure how interested people would be in getting in doing anything really if it required them coming out of their house. Were we going to deliver? How could we actually even make this happen and keep everybody safe? And so we just thought, well, we'll probably get 10 to 20 people. So that's easy enough. It doesn't require too many logistics. And for taking orders, they already had a system set up to do orders. We could also have considered doing our own system where they ordered through us and we put a bulk order in with the distribution center itself. So we decided, well, we'll try using the system that they already have, because what they also have is a lot of add-on items. So you could get a farmer's market box and 10 different items from other local producers and businesses like cheese and chocolate and I mean all of these different things, eggs, and so for us to try to keep track of inventory on that was a little bit complicated. So we thought, well, we'll just let them have it. But then we thought, well, we could get a Sprinter van from somebody. We could drive up there. We'll bring them back. A local church and neighborhood center here offered to let us use their parking lot. And so we're like, okay, we'll set up a parking lot drive-through service and we can do that. And then we asked to see if we have enough volunteers. We did. We thought, well, maybe we'll need 6 or 8 people to kind of do it. And so that was really those were the biggest questions in the beginning that we answered. So we just sort of launched it and said, all right, well, we did this all within a week, by the way. And so we just put it out there and said, hey, anybody wants to order a box, get it in by Sunday at midnight.
Now, before we get to the response, though, I want to ask a couple questions. I want to first clarify, this distributor does only local food, right? So it's not like it's a pretty broad spectrum because it's California, but it's only local foods. They're not
only local.
Okay. All right, great. Yep. And then
in a hand sort, they curate these boxes. A person literally drives around to around 15 different farms every week to curate a box for people. So it's a really sort of intimate project that they're doing. And the add-on items they have are coming from like really great local companies and exposing a lot of local companies. So it really aligns with what we want to be doing as a co-op. And so for us, it just seemed like a no-brainer to partner with them and try to figure out a way to make it work, you know?
Yeah, and you're saying the basic price point is $20, despite
20
being
bucks.
local, hand curated, it's $20. And then if people want to go crazy and add things on, they also have that option, right?
Yes.
And you guys don't have to handle any of the ordering system. You just tell people go to this spot.
Yes. And they have to put in and they just enter group code Suncoast, and that's what puts their items onto what has turned in now to a truck that they distribute to us.
And is the distributor even sorting it into each order, or are they just giving you the bulk stuff and then you guys sort?
They're giving us the bulk stuff.
Okay, so they're not sorting it into boxes, you're sorting. I have a funny feeling there's more of a story to that later. We'll come back around to that.
It's really fun. Seriously, and it's really not fun. And seriously.
And ironically.
Yeah. Yes, it's interesting. Yeah, so that's what they do. They just bring us a big truck of boxes and food.
They bring you, boxes, truck full of food, you guys pick it up, truck full of food, you bring it back. So you guys were thinking 10, 20 people might react. We'll kind of see how this thing goes. And you decided to distribute. People are going to come pick up in person. You decided not to do it.
We decided to take a parking lot of a local, it used to be a church, it's now a neighborhood center. So this really big parking lot. And we thought, well, we'll just put a table with some boxes on it down the middle, and then cars will come on each side, open their trunk, we'll put a box in their trunk, and they'll drive away.
Okay. And so and you're thinking, small volunteer effort, 6 to 8 people. You had people who were interested in doing it. Like, that wasn't a big push. Okay.
No, we had people that felt okay as long as we had masks and gloves and social distancing.
Awesome. Which is something even open co-ops are seeing, is that we have some owners that really, really want a way to serve this community, like through the co-op, are really like, if you put out an opportunity, they're going to take it. They have time, they're healthy, they're interested in helping. And then you have people who need the help. So it sounds like you naturally have that balance as well.
Yes. And I think that's, and if we don't talk about it later, I'll just mention it now. That's been a huge advantage to this, is that you're getting new volunteers, people that didn't have time before, or, for whatever reason, this speaks more to them, this level of service. And so we're getting volunteers because of that.
I think that's very interesting. I think actually your peers might want to hear a few more words on that. So it's not people you had volunteer before necessarily.
Both new and prior. Yeah.
New and prior. Okay. Excellent. And so you're getting an opportunity to bring new people into the fold. Assuming they already were owners, but not volunteers?
Both new owners that have become volunteers. Yeah. So that's another thing I'll talk about, is just how this impacted our ownership.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So you had a couple more logistical notes here. How you're handling errors. And wanting donations are part of the program. I wasn't sure what that meant.
Yeah. So we weren't, if something went wrong with these add-on items, it's not like you could just go in the back room and get more eggs, right? And so in order to, if we had missing items or if something was wrong with the order, somebody had to go to the distribution center to get the new items, and then we would have to hand deliver any errors that we made to people. So that was one thing that was just a consideration, because right now, you can't just pop in and out of a store. It's just such a hassle to do everything. And this this specialty produce company is taking things very seriously. And so it's quite a system to be able to get in and out of there. And so that was definitely a concern of, like, we didn't want to get too far into it, and then all of a sudden it becomes a whole thing that we weren't expecting. Yeah. The donation piece is that as soon as this started, Suncoast Market was asked to be on 2 different mayor task forces. So our mayor put together 5 task forces to handle different issues that were going to come up in the city during a crisis. And one of those was high-risk population management. So getting food to seniors and getting food distribution and that kind of thing. Also transportation and errands for people that couldn't leave their houses. And the other one had to do with small business preservation. So getting support to small businesses to prevent them from going out of business. And so Suncoast was asked to be leaders on both of those committees. And so that was really awesome. It says a lot about what we're doing here. But what we also found out in doing that is how hard hit our community was when it came to food insecurity. So we were worried about people wanting fresh produce and not being able to get it easily because the stores were just running out. And what we found was that people literally don't have food right now, and because they've lost their jobs, and it was more prevalent than we thought. And so when we did this program, we thought, something that's really important to us is to serve our community, as all of our co-ops want to do. And so how do we make sure that when we're doing this produce distribution, that we're not reinforcing an image that a co-op is just for elitist white people? And because that is something that we battle with here in general, is how do we make sure that we're meeting the needs of everyone, not just the few that have the time and the resources to be involved. And so we wanted to make sure we had free food distribution as part of this program. And so we just made a commitment, that's what we were going to do. And turns out people feel really generous right now, and we have been able to distribute free food every week as well.
Okay, so I think I've got a couple questions that are showing up for you.
I know, so if you want me to go into the details now, I can, or I can do that separately.
We totally can, but let's jump there, because let's step back. That's pretty fascinating. So how are you accepting donations, and how are you finding people who need the free food? How's that working?
Yeah, so on the task force that we're on, we created a needs request form. So if anyone in the community had a need, they could put in a request form that came to our committee, and we distributed that out. So almost all of the requests were for food. And so what we did is, with those people, we helped connect them with food banks and food distributions. And then we added an option on there to say, do you want a free one-time produce box? And we got a lot of yeses. And so we got a lot of yeses. And so we had to raise a lot of money really fast. And we did that because some of our city leadership donated money. A lot of our owners donated money. We just put a request on social media, and some city councilman, one of our city councilmen put the word out in his sort of circle of people. So like our senator and a lot of people donated money. But then we got a lot of, $20 donations that just started coming in, and people buying a produce box for someone. So from that, we just take it off that request list, and it's worked. So the list is longer than the amount of boxes we had as of last week. So I just put out another emergency, like, we have this many orders next week, and we need $700 to fill them, and we need donations, and we got them. So perfect. We did temporarily turn it off because we got a little bit behind because of another food distribution we did. It was separate from Suncoast, but we were a big part of it. That got a huge response, and our did you want a free produce box was on the form at the time. And so all of a sudden we got like 100 requests in 24 hours. And so we're catching up a little bit, but we did, last week we distributed 50 boxes of free produce, and then we've decided that we're probably better equipped to do 25 a week through this, and then dealing with anybody that has immediate and urgent food requests in between, just separately. Logistically doing the donations is very hard. So last week we had 55 people. We purchased boxes for 55 people. We confirmed with them, do you still want a produce box? Pickup is tomorrow. Will you be there? Yes. And we had 11 people that didn't show up that had done that.
Your peers, yeah. Like, what happens then?
Yeah. So 11 out of 40 people basically came. 11 didn't. And we had 11 boxes we had to unload. So we went through the list to the next, several people and said, hey, if you want a box, can you come right now? And did that. And then some people didn't order a box last week and they wanted one. And so we unloaded them through having them pay, and then we just put that money towards future boxes. So we realized that we can really only handle about 25 a week, because it takes a lot of communication with the person that you're doing that food donation with to make sure that they have transportation to get there. Do we need to be more mindful of delivering to those donated families? Are they local? Are they coming from outside areas? Because some people here have been displaced. So they're living in a hotel that's, 10 miles away right now, even though they're local residents, and they don't have that transportation, but we don't necessarily have the delivery capacity. So there's some things in there that we didn't realize that were maybe issues. And so That's part of it. So all of the donation boxes come from a separate donation fund that we have. It's not coming from Suncoast, it's coming out of that fund. And so we just are sort of taking the orders based on how much money we have, knowing that we still have probably another month here, and the food needs are getting higher, and we don't want to not have food when some emergencies come up too.
So is you're saying that you guys had like 55 boxes last week? It sounds like most of that was donations, and are there people? So how's the
No, I'm sorry. 55 of that was completely just donations.
Oh, okay. So I didn't ask you, what's the response been in the way of people who are ordering?
Okay, so the first week we were hoping 10 to 20, and when the orders came in, we had 75.
Oh boy.
We were like, oh, so that's not a Sprinter van. That's like a couple Sprinter vans making a couple of trips. And so that was a whole thing. But it turned out that because we had such great response, that the food distribution of specialty produce is their name. Specialty produce is now delivering to us. So the first week we had 75. The second week, I don't know. Basically, we're having like 150 a week. It doubled after the first week, and then it sort of stayed. So we have 300 people that have signed up for this service, but not everybody orders every week because they don't need that much food if they're a single person or just a 2-member household. That doesn't eat a lot of produce. My family eats that box in like 3 days, but I know some people it's good for them for 2 weeks worth. So we're getting about 150 a week is what we're.
And so I'm going to circle back to the question of what happens if people don't show up. Grant was asking from Chicago Market, what happens when the paid boxes don't show up? Has that been an issue?
Yeah. So the biggest issue, so the first week when we got 75 orders, we didn't have time to know the problems with using an external system. So using specialty produce's system seemed really great because they're taking the money, they've got the invoices and the orders, they're just going to put it on a truck and they're going to bring it. Well, their system is old. They've never done this type of program before. And so it was easy for them to say, well, we'll just use Suncoast group code. Well, some people forgot to put the group code in. Some people couldn't get the group code to take. Their system wasn't working as it needed to the entire time. And so although we had 75 orders the first week, we actually had a lot more. They just weren't counted in our group. So what happened was they brought 75 boxes down and they gave us a spreadsheet of names of here's the people's orders. And we had little clipboards and the people drove in and they pull up their car and they're like, hey, I'm Sally Smith and I'm here to pick up my items. And we look at the list and she's not on there.
Oh no.
And she's like, but I have a receipt. But you're not on the list. So that means we don't have your items. So that means we're doing deliveries to your house later. So we'd have to send those people home, write down the person's name, their entire order. And then, and this has really gone on for 3 weeks, but the first week it was a lot. And the second week it was a lot, but it was less. And last week it was less. And this week we hope it's none because I think we've got that group code things sorted, but initially it meant running back and forth, getting people's orders. And then people would be like, oh, I forgot to pick it up yesterday and it's Friday now and nobody's here. Like, we don't live in the parking lot. So shoot, because what we also didn't realize is that like they had a lot of automated systems to remind the 40 people that they were getting a week before us. And so some of those automated systems said, pick your box up Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. And so some of the people that were in our group weren't coming because they thought, oh, now I can pick it up for 3 different days during normal business hours. There's just a lot of logistics within their system that we weren't aware of. And so we did have to do running back and forth to get missing items and then hand delivering those to people's houses. But then it got worked out. Initially, the specialty produce really just thought everything was our fault. They just kept saying, well, just message your people and tell them.
Right.
And we're like, we don't have people. We have 27,000 residents and 5 neighboring communities. and we didn't really do a huge advertising campaign around it initially because we just wanted to sort of test the waters. But it was really popular because it was gorgeous. I mean, this box showed up with this beautiful food and all these local farms, and we're tagging them on social media, and people are sharing recipes, and it became a whole thing. And so there's a lot of sharing, and so it just went really quickly. And a company that was doing 40 boxes a week by last week was doing 600. And
Right.
So so their system, and they had laid off, they had furloughed, half of their staff. And so it was really just this one guy, this poor guy, Joe, that's our liaison, but just trying to make it work. And so now this week, I think we've got it sort of figured out. So they created a special link for us. So people don't have to put the group code in. They're just going from our website and they're automatically in our group. And this week they're giving us tablets. So one other big issue that we had was they were printing us an invoice form on, say Thursday for our Friday distribution, but Thursday during the day, people were calling in saying, where's my box? Why isn't it here? I'm supposed to pick it up from Suncoast. And so we were having to put people into the group that were missed. And then on Friday we had an outdated list, right? So again, we have people showing up and we don't have their name. So that company this week is giving us tablets, and they've created like an app system for us to use. It's not anything really fancy, but I mean, these are the kind of things that after a month we've been able to adapt pretty quickly to accommodate this sort of program that was a lot bigger than we thought. We thought we're going to get 25 boxes maybe if we're lucky, and we're going to be putting them into somebody's trunk, and we're going to know these people. A lot of these are going to be our owners, and that's not what's happening. It's a lot of people we don't know. And so
somehow I suspect that that original team of 6 to 8 volunteers has not been big enough.
No, yes and no. So now we've got it. I think that 6 to 8 people is actually going to work, because that was another problem, right? Like, how do you sustain a program long term? Because we're trying to think, like, should we do this long term? How do you sustain a program long term that requires 15 to 20 volunteers a week? I mean, we all know on this call, that's a recipe for burnout right there. And so I think we've sort of figured it out now. There's, we've got 2 sides. They come in and with cards on both sides. We've got one person that's checking orders, one person that's filling their additional items, and one person that's getting their box, putting those into the trunk. We've had a couple of mistakes, still, where we're having to drive up to fix orders because we accidentally forgot to give somebody something or gave somebody 2 things instead of 1. But really, it's not that bad.
How much, it feels like it takes like a huge chunk of your life on delivery day. Like, how long is the process from like the truck to being done?
Yeah. So they drop off our produce around 8:30, and we distribute from 9 to 11. So we get there at 8 to set up all of the tents and get the pallets set up. The truck comes at 8:30. We have like an assembly line of getting all of the items off of that. We organize the table by the additional items. And then people are done at 11, and then we clean up. And then we usually have, last week we had 2 deliveries for people that aren't able to leave their homes. And then we had 6 deliveries of missing items that we had to accommodate for. And so that wasn't bad.
So it's running a good 8 a.m. to noon though.
So yeah, I think that's where we're at. Prior to that, it would take me all day trying to fix the mess and sort of regroup afterwards about where are things going wrong. Because one thing that was really fun was on our 2nd or 3rd week, it does not rain in California ever, let alone pour rain. And it absolutely dumped buckets for hours and hours and hours right in the middle of our distribution time. And that was a hot mess because you've got cardboard boxes. I mean, we've got tents, but I mean, in California, like, we're just worried about keeping the sun off of us. Right. They're not made for like dumping or rain. So it's just I mean, water is just pouring down on everything. Our checklist for getting people checked in is drenched. We can't read anything that's on the items. People don't have the receipts. They don't want to open their windows because we don't really want people opening their windows anyways for social distancing. It was a huge mess. And so I would say every other, like the first few weeks, we were really spending the whole entire day just trying to handle the whole thing. But I think starting last week and moving on, it's an 8 to 12, 8 to 12:30. And then it takes me a couple of hours to sort of close everything out, to just reconcile who showed up, who didn't, make sure we track the donation boxes, make sure that anybody that had an error, I get back to the company to have them check their account to see like where things went wrong. So
it's
there's a couple hours there.
Volunteer team thing, but then you've got another 2 or 3 hours of work when that's all done.
Yes, and I'll be totally honest. It takes about 20 hours a week for me to do this system. And I have a partner. So I have somebody that helps me with like setting up a spreadsheet of orders, and he's been doing some of those sort of technical things. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot, up to until this point, there's been a lot of emails, a lot of people asking questions, a lot of people showing up at the wrong times. I mean, just all of that stuff. It was kind of a mess. And so I don't want to sugarcoat that, like, everybody should just do a produce program. We did it in a week. Yeah. We did, but it does come with like a lot of patience. Yeah.
So we had a couple of quick questions we're going to address, and then Grant raised his hand and would like to ask you a question. Yep. One of the questions was, does Suncoast actually receive any proceeds from this box at all, or it's just because kind of the good for the good of the community thing?
Right now, it's for the good of the community. So if we continue this long term, we will absolutely need to charge additional money to sustain the program. Okay. We'll need to pay. We need to have a coordinator that is paid for their time to manage this. Mm-hmm.
Very good point.
Because right now there's a lot of grace from everybody around mistakes and errors. It's like, I'm so sorry your goat cheese isn't here today. We'll drop it off to you, or oh, your name's not on a list. But you don't want those things to continue, right? Because we're trying to open a multi-million-dollar grocery store and tell people they can trust us with their money. And so if we can't handle produce distribution, then that's not going to be great for our image. And so we really need to make sure that we get this right, and we do a really a great job with it. Yeah.
Couple of short, quick ones, and then I want to let Grant talk. Someone just asked for the size of your community, and the other one is, who's paying for this truck? How's that working?
Yeah. So our community is 27,000 people immediately, but it's surrounded by larger communities. So we're really serving 3 different communities, but yeah, we're 27,000 people. So it's it's a small town. And then the truck is coming from Specialty Produce. So they're delivering it for us. So they're taking all of our orders, packaging them, and bringing them straight to us every week. Okay.
All right, Grant, go ahead and ask you. I see you've got a series of questions here. I'll let you go. Are you unmuting there?
So I'm confused which Grant you mean.
Oh, this is Grant Kessler? Is that who raised their hand?
I did not.
Oh.
Chicago Market.
Oh, well, I mean, I've thrown a few comments into the chat, so if you want me to repeat them, that's great. But
somebody marked a thing that said raising hands, and I thought it said Grant. I apologize. I don't know who I missed there. So obviously I don't understand the tech that fully. Write in the chat, I want to talk, rather than doing the Zoom hand raise, because I get confused. But Grant, do you want to share your questions?
Sure. I think you're coming close to answering this, but I'm wondering how you now assess the positive impacts for your co-op. Do you feel like this was worth it for the sake of engagement or new owner growth or awareness, relationships with farmers? Do you have any direct relationship with the farmers that are in these boxes, or is it just with your distributor? Things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of the relationship with the farmer, the only direct relationship we have is through social media tagging. So every week, what I do is I just take some pictures of all the produce and I tag the farms that are in there. So then we're getting responses back from the farms and some shares there. And so some of these farms aren't local, as in right here. But they are, south of LA, right? So it's still pretty local. But they're all new to us as a co-op. So that's where those relationships are at this point. And so to answer that question, and then positive impacts to the community have been huge. I think we weren't expecting that as much as we've received. So we, after the first week, we got a lot of people sharing on social media that they were getting these boxes and how great they were. We had a lot of people posting in our local Facebook groups about, where do I get food? Where's everybody buying produce? And then people were answering like, I'm getting this box. So we had a lot of people that just had either not heard of us before, or had heard about us, but just didn't really know what was happening, that became really engaged with what we were doing. And then they're showing up to pick up a box, and, we're all there wearing our masks. So, you can't see that we're smiling like heavily underneath there, but like, there's like great body language exchanges of everybody of just like, here's your box. This is fun. We're being seen as serving the community really strongly. And then the donation program on top of that has really been impactful, I think, for the co-op, because we're putting not our money where our mouth is, but our time. So not only are we doing this, but we are doing food bank distribution. We're doing this community needs assessment that's going out there. We're doing a couple other things too. We're doing like a takeout bingo for local small businesses. So to get people getting takeout from the restaurants. So our name has kind of been put out there in a lot of community-centered ways. And so that I think people are just hearing about us left and right now. And that cumulatively has been really great. And then new owner growth, we actually weren't expecting hardly any new owner growth during this, because our community is definitely a lower income community. And so when COVID shutdown happened, we immediately just pivoted and said, we're not focused on owner growth at all right now. It would be really tone deaf of us to do anything related to ownership growth. It could really have tipped negatively here in this community if we did that. So we just pivoted straight to community service. Like, we have 550 owners that care about their community. So let's just engage them in community service. And so because of that, we were the largest and most functional organization in our entire city. So there is nobody in town that has that many people that are that like committed to their community that can get mobilized that quickly. So we just sent out an email, and we've had tons of volunteers. I mean, and so we've just really shown up, like I said, by putting our money where our mouth is. So that's been really good. And then even outside of our community, because specialty produce is also sharing what we're doing. The newspaper did a story on us. The local digital newspaper did a story on us. We've been hesitant to do too much media too soon, because logistically we weren't there, and we don't want to give ourselves a bad name. But I think hopefully after this week we can do even more media for that. So
excellent. And we've got some questions. Grant from Silverton would like to has raised his hand. Do you want to unmute here and ask your question?
Sorry, guys, this is Stacy. It shows up as Grant because
Grant's iPad.
Ah, got it. Okay, Stacy.
That was where the confusion came from. So we're a town about the same size as Suncoast, but we're in a more rural area, and we don't have the volunteer base that you guys have. Also, we're working very closely with our local farmers market, hand in hand. Many of the same vendors that sell at the farmers market would also like to sell at our co-op. And so my question is, if we would do something like this, how would we keep, if you know, from undercutting our farmers market, which is still in operation?
I did not mention, so what I did not mention is that we also have a local farmers market that was shut down. And it's a tight line that we're walking, because we do not want to offend the farmers market program in any way for several reasons. And so one thing I did is I just contacted the person that runs the farmers market and said, hey, this is what we're doing. Let's let her know. And she was like, yeah, it's terrible. Like, I feel really bad for my farmers. And so I just said, tell them to get in touch with me. Because when we initially started this, we weren't sure exactly what we could do. Like, were we going to continue this produce box? Were we going to try to do our own, like, sort of box of the same version with some of the local farmers market farms, which was totally an option that I think you guys could explore. But the farmers never got in touch with me. So from that perspective, it was easy to just let it go. But I did put it out there and say, we're doing this. Now, long term, we actually think we want to sustain this program because it seems to be going really well. And if the interest continues, we'd like to do it. Then we're going to be stepping on the farmers market's toes. And so that's where our thoughts are right now of how can we do it in a way that is mutually beneficial to everyone. And so we don't know what the answer is to that quite yet. We've thought about a local buyers club, for example, instead of calling it, like right now it's called a farmers market box. Maybe we need to do a buyers club. Maybe it's a bazaar. I don't know what we're doing.
So to clarify, you guys, your farmers market is not in operation right now. Right. Okay. So you're not directly in competition with them right now, but long term, you might be.
Probably in the next few weeks, the farmers market will be able to operate in some capacity, and then it'll be tricky.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Our farmers market isn't great because there really are only 2 local farmers that are there every week. And the rest of it is fast food. It's just people showing up and selling food like I don't know, I wouldn't call it a carnival, but there's like an Indian food person and there's like a Korean food person.
A food truck rally. Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. And then there's people selling like handmade items. But there's only really 2 farms that are there. And so she wants it to get bigger, except that there's a lot of logistical issues because we're right on the border and it's far away from a lot of communities. So a lot of people don't come here for our farmers market because it's not that great. And a lot of local people don't take advantage because there's not enough there, right? So they're in a conundrum. They can't get people there. And so I don't know. I don't know. What do you do? What is the answer when you're a co-op and you're trying to increase access to fresh and healthy food in your community and you could maybe do a better job than your farmers market? Do you lessen your goals to try not to walk on toes, right? Or do you rise up and think, if we just do the next right thing, it'll all work out, right? And so that's where
So Bonnie's shaking her head, and I'm seconding Bonnie. The thing is, and every startup, by the way, most of you are going to run into this at some point. You're either going to be in direct competition with, or they're going to feel you are, with a small, independent, like little vitamins, natural food store, or it's going to be the farmer's market, or it's going to be something. And what we have seen, and I have seen as the general manager repeatedly, is that if everybody's bringing their A game, when the co-op starts to do their thing, it rises all the ships, right? Because more people are interested in local food, more people in natural food. The co-op is totally open to cross-promoting those things, especially the farmers market. Like you could have a flyer you're handing out every week with that box about how to join, how to be part of the farmers market when it happens. And you're like, well, people are still going to be upset. Absolutely true. Because if they're not bringing their A game, it might hurt the way they want to approach it, but they're not serving the community the way the community wants to be served. And I'll be the jerk who says that. So it's absolutely, there's ways to make sure that you are an exemplary player who is respectful, who's transparent, who's supportive, who gives people opportunities to promote what they're doing, and to keep doing what the communities actually said they wanted. Right. But we've seen lots of startups go through this and get through it. So I just want to say like that wouldn't be a reason to pause. One real quick reason I think I do want to say is that Friendly Farmers, Friends and Farmers Co-op in State College, PA, they decided to run a program where they actually were the ones collating all the local food from the farmers, and then a distribution point, people came and picked it up. I want to say that's different than, I really believe it's very strongly different than what Suncoast is doing. That took them, they ended up, by the time they were done with that program, they had 100 families participating, but only those 100, and it was a full-time staff member job, and it kind of took over the board's work. They eventually decided not to go after a store, even though they had a good market for that, and they already had 3 farmers markets in town, by the way, and they decided to just be a buying club, and they now have dissolved. I'm not saying their story is going to be everyone's story, but what Suncoast is doing with a partner is going to be very different than trying to coordinate your own program.
Yeah, and we have had people that have asked, like, could we incorporate a buyers club into this? So for example, you've got local businesses that are selling great things like a gluten-free bakery, and you've got a kombucha place, and you've got things like that. Do we, turn it into sort of a buyer's club in the end where people can pre-order and pick it up until we open our store? And it's on the table. I just don't know. I think the big fear is exactly what you said. Does it detract from your store efforts? And we do participate in our local farmers market. We've actually, in the last year, have committed to once a month trying to bring more people to the farmers market. So we'll do some type of activity, and it works out really well for us, getting owners as well. And it brings people down there, but the problem is there's still not enough food there for people to see it as a viable place to get their weekly groceries. So this is a picture of our box a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, there's definitely a picture. So we're down to about 10 minutes left. I know people have a couple more questions. Bonnie pointed out, actually, they were advised to possibly even begin their own farmers market by their market study analysis, even though they're already tabling at the local one. And this is something that's worked for food co-ops established and startups. So I do understand why it was said. I think it's a bigger conversation about that competing and the farms and how that works. But for them to have brought it up, they don't bring it up with every community. And when they have brought it up, the co-ops that have followed up on it most of them have had a pretty good, like Dorchester did it for a while, and it went really well for them. So we can connect you to peers. I don't know if anyone from Dorchester's on the call today. I don't believe they're still doing it. Every startup that has started something like that and gotten further along in their process eventually has either dissolved it, but usually, especially if it's a buying club thing, they've done it for a while and then they've decided it's time to stop. Or if it was a farmer's market, they found another org to take it over eventually, and the co-op's still present. And that has happened every single time. They start this thing, they run it for a couple of years. It's a lot of work. It gets them a lot of visibility. They hand it off as it stops being kind of a new form of visibility to a nonprofit org that wants it, that can fund it, and they move back, they move that capacity back to store, to store work. So we have seen that. I
can see why. It's a lot of work. I mean, and so as an outreach manager, what I've seen is, I only have so much time, right? And now I'm representing Suncoast on committees, and we're in like crisis mode, and I do have another job I actually have to go to sometimes. And so what I've noticed from an outreach perspective is it's taking away from some of the other things that were actually going really well, right? Mm-hmm. So the consistency on some of those things that we want to keep doing has been compromised by all of the energy in the last month of doing this other thing. And so I could see that long term it slows things down, because you're trying to do excellent things here and excellent things here, but there's only so much time. So
if it can't afford its own coordinator, I'll absolutely say that I would come down strongly at ending it once COVID-19 is over. But that moves us into your tips. So we've only got about 8 more minutes with you. Tell us, if people were thinking about doing this, what are your top tips?
I think if there's interest and you have the people to help do it, you should jump in. But just remember that it could just be like partnering with one local farm, for example. We could have done that, but our local farm doesn't have the capacity for what we need. It's really, really small. And then from there, we don't have anything else. But you could really put together a smaller box and people would be just as happy. $20 is so cheap, and we get, a lot of stuff. So, but do plan for the unexpected success that we had. So just plan, if a lot of people want it, is this something you can actually follow through with? You do need a program lead, somebody that's committed 100% to all of the details of it, to fixing it, because it is sort of a labor of love, and you need to represent your co-op really well, because if you're going to open a store, you don't want to mismanage this, what seems to other people is really small. Most people think that this is like a really easy, simple thing to do when they show up and pick up their box, and it looks really easy and really fun. And so when we screw it up, it's like, how can you get this wrong? I just ordered a box and goat cheese, right? And then, so on that same note, make sure people know that it is a pilot program. For one, that you may not do it long term. You're just trying it out, and there's going to be errors, because that's been really important for us. Is like, we're really sorry, this is brand new, we try to step in quickly. Some people have been more gracious because of that than I think they would be otherwise. And it's really important to have a debrief with everybody, all of the volunteers to hear, because I'm there sort of managing the whole thing, but there's little things that are happening throughout. And so I think because we've done that so well, after a month, we actually, I think, have something really going well now. But at the end of the day, what is most important is that we use this opportunity to highlight the co-op mission and vision. And so that means that we're highlighting local farms. So starting this week, we're going to have a chalkboard, and we're going to highlight one of the local farms on that chalkboard to make sure people know that this isn't just us grabbing produce from the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
This is the type of produce that you can expect in our co-op from local farms that you feel connected to, because that's the message we've promised people, that you're buying food from people that you know and trust. And so we want to reinforce that. And then highlight the heck out of it on social media, all the local farm piece, like the environmental sustainability piece, you're buying food closer to home. I mean, all of these things, because I think, again, people sort of feel like this is just a box of produce when they're picking it up, and not realizing that like this was in a farmer's hand 4 days ago. And it was hand selected from you from that farm from that farm for this box. And so I think that's sort of where we are now after our heads stop spinning a little bit, is okay, well, we need to get really back to the basics of what we're doing so that people can start to use this as a way to visualize the store.
Yes, that's terrific advice. You have one more question from Pierre here. Do you limit the area you serve? Now, keeping in mind, Denise, they don't deliver. People come to them. So do you guys have we only serve people in this area? Because if there's a mistake, you have to drive to their homes, or do you have any limits?
Anybody that's willing to drive can order. So there's no limits there. Delivery, they need to be local. But we're all suckers. So if somebody really has a need, then we can find a volunteer. So my message has been, we only deliver locally, but let me see if I can find a volunteer that's willing to drive it to you. And so that I didn't put on there, but make sure people know that these are volunteers that are doing this whole operation. And so in all of my emails have been saying, like our volunteers the volunteers are doing the best they can, and this is a lot of volunteer hours if you want to volunteer, because I think, again, we need volunteers long term, and we need to support that long-term vision for the co-op. So yeah, I think that's good. And Grant was asking about marketing materials. So yes, so when the people come, we actually have 3 kids that have been there each week helping do things. And so the kids have been asking every car, are you an owner in Suncoast? And then they give a little spiel. It's the cutest thing you've ever seen. And they're giving a brochure to them. And then we also ordered stickers that we're going to put on every box, and hopefully they'll be here this week, that we can make sure has all of our logo, so it's really clear that we're doing this. And then we also have all of their emails. So all of these people go into our mailing system. All of these people are doing that. So again, now after a month, we're sort of at a point where everybody that's ordered that's not an owner is going to start getting a message from me saying, how do you like your box? So we're just going to send out a survey. How do you like your box? And did you know that this was from local farms? And, how important is buying from local farms to you? And just sending a survey that I'm actually going to use as a way to bring them on as owners. But it's going to sound like I'm looking for feedback.
I love that. Everyone listen to Shannon. The people love to give feedback. They love to dump feedback on you. But once they've talked to you, you're in a relationship.
They will be owners.
They will be owners.
My hope is that we get 100 new owners from this box in the next 3 months. That just from the box process alone. And I think that that's pretty realistic, actually. It's just right now in the first month of a pandemic, it's really hard to go in for an ask for people. But it's not going to be hard to do that in a few months, if they really like the produce. So
excellent. Okay, well, if it was we were like one more. Is there a last question for Shannon before we wrap up today and thank her for her time and talk about what's next? So how many people have joined so far, Bonnie said?
17 this month.
still
So 17 in 3 weeks, we were like, what? Is that right? Did I check the math? And I was like, oh,
I think
right.
that the only other co-op that's gotten 17 new owners this month have just announced a site at the beginning of COVID-19. So
Yeah.
when you announce a site,
that was huge. It was very unexpected. I thought 17 was quadruple what I would have expected this month.
Excellent.
In a community where everyone has lost their jobs. I mean, this is
right. That's the thing,
it's bad.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's okay. So I just want to thank Shannon. This has been phenomenal. I think she's given you a very realistic picture of what you're up against if you decide to do something like this, and the pros and the cons. I'm pretty sure, but I'll check that she'd be willing to reach out to if people have more questions.
Yeah.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I will make sure I put how to reach Shannon in the email I sent out afterwards with the recording, the slides. Want to take this moment to thank her. This is phenomenal. And I know you must be crazy busy, even worse than usual right now. So we're so grateful for you coming and sharing your time with us. I do want to make sure everyone knows what's coming up next. And I also want to say, you know, if you're running a project like this, like something Shannon's doing, like, you know, it doesn't have to be something you knocked out of the park. It can be, but also it can be something that you're not sure how it's going. It can be something that spectacularly failed if you've got the bravery to share that. But it really is terrific to learn from what peers are trying and have a conversation. And I'd love to have you do a session and be interviewed by me about something you're doing related to COVID-19. So do reach out, or if you have any topics you feel we haven't touched on yet that you'd like to know more about. Which leads us to coming up, everybody wanted to hear from Oshkosh Food Co-op about whether or not they've made their goal and how the heck they were asking for money. The last month of their campaign was during COVID-19. So how were they doing that? Katie Novak from Katie Novak Cooperative Coaching will be back with the board chair of Oshkosh Food Co-op, Brenda Haynes, to talk to you about how that went. And they have not announced yet. They may have just crossed their line. They're not announcing till Sunday, so I don't know if she'll even tell us tomorrow, but she'll be here tomorrow at noon. And then on Tuesday, I'm very excited, we'll be welcoming Amaha Selassie, the board chair of Gem City Market, who will be here to talk about collectivism, but like the spirit of the now and how people are ready to talk about cooperatives and how we capture this moment, and how it's not time to stop talking about co-ops and how to do it in a sensitive way right now. Super psyched about that. And then on Thursday, Mickey Smith will be here from Little Africa Food Collaborative talking about creating community response. Now, Mickey's organization is broader than just the food co-op. The food co-op's part of their overall mission. As soon as they even saw it coming, Mickey led a response and said, we already see this coming, got a bunch of community leaders together to do some planning about how they were going to support the community, how they were going to keep their community fed. It's a low access, low income community, and they kind of got ahead of it, and their co-op ended up being the leader of the conversation and what came from that and how they developed that process. So we're excited to have her with us here next week as well. So thank you everybody for coming out. And we have more topics coming, and we want to hear more from you about topics. Grant from Chicago Markets just sent us a tough one. We're researching how we could get that covered. And we hope you all are joining us here again tomorrow. All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Shannon. This was terrific.
Okay. Well, thanks. Yeah. People can reach out anytime.
Excellent. I'll put your email in the thing. People will definitely be reaching out. I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah, and should go to our website too to sort of see. There's a lot of FAQs and stuff that we put together too that might be helpful.
All right.
The other thing I didn't mention is on there we also have on our website a COVID resource page too, so you can some of the stuff I talked about is in there too.
Excellent. I will not promise, because I know when I brained, I'm gonna try very hard to highlight that in the email and put a link so people go take a look at it, because that's great stuff. All right. Thanks, Shannon.